Hi, I'm Danny Flexen and welcome to this week's edition of SecondsOut ReFLEXions. We're here every Monday at 4:30pm, usually to look back on the action that's just taken place. I was all raring to go, talk about Keith Thurman's return fight, Jamie Munguia was in a war, but about an hour ago, news broke that super middleweight former world champion George Groves had decided to hang up the gloves after just over a decade in the sport. So it seems appropriate with that news just breaking, we should reflect back on Groves' career and specifically, I guess, my relationship with him over the years without being too indulgent. I first met George after his sixth pro fight. So that Frank Maloney was putting on a show in a place called Seaburn in Sunderland. It's like a little town, but it's got a beach. There's actually a beach in Sunderland, which I was shocked to learn. And George was on the bill. Wasn't with Maloney, but he was on the bill. I think they were just doing Adam Booth a favour, getting him fights early on in his career. And he fought an Eastern European, I think he was Lithuanian, called Tadeusz Jonkus in his sixth fight, who was, unfortunately for him, outweighed by 8 pounds, as well as obviously being Groves' inferior in terms of talent and everything else. Groves got the job done early, as you would expect. And afterwards, I was staying in, so next to the Seaburn Centre, which is where the show was, there's a little restaurant called Pullman Lodge, which has little rooms like chalets attached to it. And Pullman Lodge is a restaurant in the shape of a train. So it's very quaint. And these little chalets. And I remember at night time when I was coming out, just maybe I was bored, trying to talk to people. David Price was in one of the chalets. He had to duck to get in and out. It was hilarious. Dave Calder was in there. He didn't have no such trouble. And George Groves. And I spoke to Groves. And as we were talking, I saw Tadeusz Jonkus. Black eye, swollen cheek, walked past, say hello, seemed very warm towards someone who just, obliterated him. After he'd gone, Groves whispered to me, mate, he's a nice guy, but I just don't, it's really weird and awkward to keep bumping into someone you've just knocked out. So yeah, he had a dry sense of humour even then. After that, I asked him to write a weekly column for the Boxing News website, that's where I was working at the time, which he agreed to. It was kind of like a training diary, so whatever he was up to that week, or even if he wasn't in camp, he'd talk about his media obligations or whatever he was doing at home that week. It was really good stuff, but I always had to chase him for the copy. He was always late, and I always had to chase him up, which gets a bit annoying for him when A, he's doing it for free, B, he's a professional boxer whose profile is growing, and C, when the person who's chasing him isn't particularly kind of well known or influential himself. So he probably felt a bit indignant that I was chasing him so much, but he filed the column. And one thing I can say, compared to a lot of other people who do columns for publications and websites, he actually wrote it himself, and the grammar, the spelling, all of that was impeccable, I've got to say. It was just timekeeping was the only issue. The next memory I've got of Groves really is after James DeGale won the British super middleweight title against Paul Smith. I think he stopped him maybe the 9th round, something like that. Looked dazzling in doing so. And I was Boxing News' ringside reporter for that fight. And I called James DeGale the special one in the headline. So when I saw Groves next, I think maybe it was when I spoke to him on the phone, maybe chasing copy again, he said, you know what, I'm going to beat your special one. And he seemed not quite offended, but a bit put out that I'd used that headline. I probably should have said, oh no, it was the editors. They changed the headline, nothing to do with me. But I held my hands up, and I'm not sure how impressed he was. Not long after, he stopped writing for us. I'm sure it was just because he got too busy. After that, his career went from strength to strength. He was always in entertaining fights. There was the gut check against Kenny Anderson, where he had to get through some real tough trouble to get through that fight. Obviously went on to win British, Commonwealth titles, really, really impressive fashion. And then, as everyone knows, he had 4 world title shots. And even though he didn't win a world title until the 4th of those shots, to be fair, 2 of the other 3 were very close. One was against Badu Jack, where you'd probably say Jack just about edged it, and there were all sorts of problems in Groves' camp and his corner, under Paddy Fitzpatrick at the time. And obviously the 2 fights with Cole Froch. One of them, the second one, is at some stadium in front of a certain number of people. It escapes me at the moment. Froch will tell you, I'm sure, if you ask him. That was a conclusive ending, but their first fight, the infamous one where Howard Foster dived in to rescue Groves, you have to put that in inverted commas, maybe prematurely. Groves, I'm sure, would still contend to this day it was a premature stoppage. That was Groves was winning that fight. Froch was coming on, momentum was with Froch, but Groves was up. He seemed to be winning at the point. He'd obviously dropped Froch early on, and he seemed to be winning, although maybe fading a bit when it was stopped. So out of 4 world title fights at a very good level, Groves was only properly short, 4 world title opportunities. Obviously, he came up short against Callum Smith in losing his world title just recently as well. But even that was at the pinnacle of the sport. It was the final of the World Boxing Super Series. And to get there, he completely outclassed Chris Eubank Jr. So that was another great performance, although he says the greatest night of his boxing life was the world title win. Which, seeing as it was the fourth time of asking. In his retirement statement, he also gives a lot of credit to Shane McGuigan, who came into Groves' career quite late on and kind of transformed him, if you like, to the point where he did beat Chudinoff for the world title. He had to come through a bit of a gut check in that one as well. He was taking a bit of stick early on, came back to stop him just when it seemed like the fight might be moving away from him. So Groves was excellent. He always had heart, he always looked to entertain, and he always did things his way. He's been self-managed for about the last 5 years. Since splitting with Adam Booth earlier on in his career, he's always kind of gone his own route. He's never kind of trash talk for the sake of it. He's always been quite a deep thinker, quite a cerebral boxer. And to be fair, not many boxers get out of the sport after just 10 years in it. He said that he's still fully fit, but the desire's gone now after losing to Callum Smith and after the birth of his second child last year. But not only that, he wants to get out and spend time with his young family while he's still got all his faculties intact. And I think you just have to praise him for being so sensible. Not enough fighters are like that, and they have problems in later life, whereas Groves will get to enjoy his young family, his legacy's intact, he finally won the world title. He can be satisfied, he couldn't have done really much more, or anything that he does regret would have been out of his hands anyway. So, tribute to George Groves. It's been a pleasure following your career and documenting your career. It was a pleasure when you were writing a column for me and for Boxing News, but even more of a pleasure to watch you finally win that world title and to go out of boxing as you went into it on your own terms. Let us know what you think of George Groves. What was your favourite memory of him and his boxing career? Let us know below in the comments. And do you think he's getting out at just the right time? We'd like to hear from you. We'll be back with Reflections next Monday, again 4:30 p.m, and we'll be looking back, hopefully, as long as there's no more surprise retirements, we'll be looking back at the weekend's action instead next time. Thank you.